it would behoove the others to watch and find how it is addressed, how change is addressed, right? The thing is that it doesn't mean that you are a totally different person, that you have to give up all the things that you ever knew, but it does require you to step into something that could be a bigger potential of who you are, which does mean that you have to start again. It does mean you have to become new. It does mean that now you're the baby in the situation. So as we listen to this and we think about the privileged along among us, and we think, oh, they have to start all over again. They have to realize that they are not privileged, that they're privileged, that they have really weaponized in with the destruction of everyone else's rights and freedoms and just possibilities of their own opportunities, have really came to a spot where they're realizing that now we have pushed it so far that their own reflection is unrecognizable. They don't know. They're looking at what's going on around us and going, was that who we have always been? That wasn't the America I knew. While everyone else is saying, look at her go, look at him go. It is the America we knew. Now it's just tweaking. Everyone can see it now, right? So it's important that as we recognize that growth hurts and that we're witnessing people trying to navigate that pain, that those of us who are aware of it, it is our job to then navigate what our growth pattern is, right? How are we growing? Welcome to Black Girl from Eugene. I'm your host, Aisha Elliott, where each week I give personal advice to help navigate thoughtful vulnerability, prompts for necessary introspection that surely will help align your intention to your impact. Welcome. Thank you for engaging my podcast yet again for a following week of What's Aisha Talking About? Podcast Black Girl from Eugene is something that has always been dear to my heart. And as we are moving through this crazy deconstruction of society as we know it, I feel like more and more I'm just giving advice. So I'm here to do just that. And I want to, of course, always thank my Patreons for supporting me. And please continue to support me as your financial assistance keeps this little podcast going. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. $5 does keep this woman's voice on air. Okay. This week has lots and lots and lots of pressure to know and understand where you are going, not just in life, but just as a norm, just as a pedagogy, as a practice. Like, this is the time in our society at this point to understand, where are you going? It's a new day, it's a new week, it's a new time to show up in your best drag, right? In your best wardrobe, in your best that you come up with that's uniquely yours. So this week, that's what I want to discuss really briefly with you all, is just how you feel about really, and I know it sounds hyperbolic, but jumping off that cliff into something that you know to be real, but you've never seen happen. That is a consciousness jump and leap that most people would say is too much of a risk. But I think if you put yourself into into the life and balance and reality of where we are in this society at this point, I don't know that we ever knew that we would be here and that it would look like this. And what does that look like? A lot of people are saying, oh, you know who you are in the civil rights movement by what you're doing at this point. I mean, yes. And I want to say no. There has been a lot of growth that has come to our society as a whole, but also there has been some real ways to negate growth for people of privilege. And it has always been, and truly, I'm not sure that it will never stop being, a way where society is always trying to keep the privileged protected or trying to keep the privileged comfortable. Because the idea of being uncomfortable is so much of a destabilizing idea that it just becomes a conflict too hard to resolve or too hard to reconcile. The truth of the matter is that growth only comes when you are uncomfortable. There's literally nothing in life that, as we navigate growth, that it feels good. It expands, it breaks apart. It has to let the old fall off so that the new can emerge. This is what growth is. Now, you can decide, hey, I have grown and I'm good, but that's just not how life works. The universe will continue to wrap upon your head until you decide sitting in this position isn't comfortable anymore. You will get to the point where it is too uncomfortable to stay where you are, and you will be forced to grow. I myself am someone who gets a whiff of a change and I will just go. This is how I am. This is who I've always been. I've also been through a lot of things that were uncomfortable enough that I don't want to repeat them again, right? You don't have to tell me twice type energy. And I think just as we go through society and we look at the people who have been through things that we just ain't going to go through again, it would behoove the others to watch and find how it is addressed, how change is addressed, right? The thing is that it doesn't mean that you are a totally different person, that you have to give up all the things that you ever knew, but it does require you to step into something that could be a bigger potential of who you are, which does mean that you have to start again. It does mean you have to become new. It does mean that now you're the baby in the situation. So as we listen to this and we think about the privileged along among us, and we think, oh, they have to start all over again. They have to realize that they are not privileged, that they're privileged, that they have really weaponized with the destruction of everyone else's rights and freedoms and just possibilities of their own opportunities, have really came to a spot where they're realizing that now we have pushed it so far that their own reflection is unrecognizable. They don't know. They're looking at what's going on around us and going, was that who we have always been? That wasn't the America I knew. While everyone else is saying, look at her go, look at him go. It is the America we knew. Now it's just tweaking. Everyone can see it now, right? So it's important that as we recognize that growth hurts and that we're witnessing people trying to navigate that pain, that those of us who are aware of it, it is our job to then navigate what our growth pattern is, right? How are we growing? And it's interesting as I think about the part of the reality when I'm watching all of these videos of ICE and these folks who are participating in the destruction of families and destruction of hope and the destruction of law and work that we have earned, won fair and square with the elections in Texas. And then we've got Gavin Newsom, who, has his own problems, come galloping on into the scene with more money and more resources than the others, and that's what will win, but democratically, right? We're going to ask everyone to join in, and we're going to use our power that we have amassed to correct, this injustice, and also recognizing that that's two states, maybe three states that are willing to say rules are rules, and then there's this, and now we have to set it straight. It's a time to jump into something that we didn't think we'd have to do, but we are willing to see where it goes because it's on the right side of humanity. So that idea of looking into what could have been and thinking, oh, romantically, like, oh, what if it would, what if it could have, what if it should have? It didn't. So now it's time to get into that growth. Now it's time to step in. And we are starting to recognize that these people who are damaging these families are not just white men, right? Are we not flabbergasted at the big black dudes who are with Ice Vest on? Are we not flabbergasted at the Latinos, right? Are we not flabbergasted at the Indians? What are you doing? What are you doing on that line? The truth of the matter is that we are not racially aligned. That is not a thing. right? We are culturally, we are values based. We have a consciousness connection to people who have a moral sense of togetherness, who can understand the harmony of opposites. They can understand how you can get along or at least respect someone else who is not exactly like you. This is a war of values and morals. So we can't be like all Black people this and all brown people that. At this point, which is really interesting, the reason why I want to say all white people is because the consciousness that needs to shift that allowed the argument that there need to be a reason why a Black man had to have gotten shot by police in the back, or still the people who need to have a reason why, I need to see more evidence to ensure that this Black body had the right to do whatever it had to do, even though those people vote Democratic, and even though those people would not have a racist bone in their body, they also they don't have enough spine to stand up and say, this will not happen. And now, if they're uttering, this is messed up, can't believe it got this far, that's still not enough, right? It's still not, oh, I feel horrible for the babies. Feel horrible for how can you allow this to happen? It was happening until it started affecting you, and now it's real. That is a problem. And so when I say all white folks, it's because that is the main group, right? The others, I want to say, have some mental defect of fear and need to have some sort of desire to assimilate for a factor of protecting themselves. And then they literally mentally and spiritually lost the plot. They didn't start off that way, right? It's not culturally a norm for Black and brown people to control, oppress, and conquer. It's not our role, right? It's literally not what we do in the history of this country. The other day I was sitting around thinking about the history of this country, and I was just thinking like, wow, 250 years, 260 years old, however, 65 years old. And I was like, we're so young. And in that 265 years for it to have crumbled this quickly is because it never started off righteously, right? There all throughout the world, there are kingdoms and empires and these whole societies that went on for 800 years, 700 years, and they did eventually fall and move on to the next. 265 years built from crime and stealing and homicide and decimation and genocide came what? What could have ever been developed from that would be rosy and smell beautiful? How could that from that get to that? You can't, that's not how that goes. That's not how development works. You can't go from absolutely broken to totally whole. Even those who can survive their brokenness to become more whole, there's always spots to be that are vulnerable. And if vulnerability means that you lose for a particular faction of this society, that is not an option. And we're looking at them like, what are you going to lose? You've got everything. It's so funny how I'm listening to people think about like, oh, we gotta get this man out of office and we gotta do all this and we gotta do all that. And I'm thinking, to do what next? What's the new game? What's the new game? Now I understand that we have to you know, deal with what's in front of us, but if we can do that in a timely fashion, meaning less than 3 to 5 years, if we can effectively do that in less than 3 to 5 years, and we can correct what has been wrong, but do we want to correct it or do we want to replace it with something equitable, with something that has a vision of a progressive and next step evolutionary movement for this country and its society? There's a word for people who come to you and look at you and their eyes are empty and they don't have anything to give and they don't have anything to contribute and they don't have anything to share. What they do know is how to take up space and take up time. And they have no connection to a story other than their worth through monetary means. It's a soulless journey. It's gringo, right? It's howling, right? It's without a soul. It's without having a connection to a land that is prosperous and beautiful for itself without having to take from anyone else. I don't know if as a society, as it crumbles and you're looking at the tower falling, the bricks are falling out and the smoke is bellowing, that we are not picking up those same bricks and carrying them with us so that we may build again. Baby, the bricks have got to go. We have to be willing to stare change in the eye and say, take us to another place where we are all new again. All right. I don't know how long this was. I'm sure it was very short. I just had this on my mind. I had this on my heart. I wanted to share it with you all. This, Virgo season is upon us. It's time to tighten up. It's time to straighten up. It's time to be very clear about our next versions of ourselves, our next vision for the future. And it needs to not look like the past. It needs to look like an evolution to the past. It needs to look like a growth, like something significant that no longer serves us was left behind. So, which means we might walk with shaky legs, but we are sure of the path. That is where we need to go. That is what we need to do. We need to lean deep into the courage to be able to know that what we believe to be true is really actually out there. It might not be evident to us at this moment, but it is out there. And if we really believe that as a society, we will step onto that path, all new. You all know that I do a lot of coaching for leadership and relational leadership coaching. And a lot has come up lately of the idea, between staff members and supervisors and leadership and management, like there's this holy divide between us and them. And this idea that we just cannot erode that sense of power, sense of a power dynamic. And we tend to rely on some sort of false narrative that once our title changes, so does our power dynamic. And the truth of it is that we are naturally associating access with more power. But then why does access all of a sudden mean the disillusionment of the people who didn't have it before? You were just them. That disconnection doesn't make any sense because now you have more information and more access to information. It does not mean by any means that it naturally separates us between us and them. It then brings you to a space of leadership, which recognizes that some folks have more information than others, others have more information than you. All of our roles are important. The way that we show up together is important. The fact of the matter is that we're too busy pointing at what other people are supposed to be doing and telling them how they're supposed to show up rather than trusting that they know who they are. They know their role. They came into the space to do exactly what they're supposed to do, and we trust them in that. That is something that is wildly missing in the dynamics of our communities and the dynamics of our workplaces and the ways in which we relate to each other is to believe that I know what I'm doing and you know what you're doing. And we're both here for the betterment of the greater good. I guess problem is that in itself is a values alignment. It is an agreement to reduce harm and to do as little harm as possible so that we can get our goal achieved with the least amount of urgency and the most amount of efficacy. We have to change our mindset. We have to be willing to be new together. If I'm new, I have to be willing to show vulnerability and allow anyone else to tell me which way is which, because I trust that in the guise of the greater good, that we will be doing it together. The mind shift, look, I am very idealistic, and also it's how I move. It has never failed me, and all I will do to the day I die is share it with you, with everyone who will be willing to pick it up. I promise you, when things go awry, have enough trust in yourself and strong enough boundaries to move on. But that doesn't mean that you don't start anew. You have to have the discernment to recognize when things have gone awry, things have gone left, and now we need to go. But that doesn't mean you come in expecting to go. You come in expecting to share your knowledge and your role to create a better yet tomorrow. And you do that. Now, if everybody did that, what would that look like? Right? We're too busy policing each other, being mad at the real police policing us while we police each other. It's madness out there. Anyway, just a couple thoughts for you to check yourself. Check yourself. Check yourself. Are we, are you, am I being responsible for me while contributing to the whole? Or am I looking over the fence to see whose grass is greener and then talk about it? How does your role contribute to the whole? Maybe your role is, like I said, maybe you're the braider. Maybe you're the flower, the person who grows the flowers. Maybe you're the bread baker. Maybe you're the activist. Maybe you're the crowd gatherer. I don't know. But your role should be for the betterment of the whole. So let's review. Let's reflect. And if you don't like what your role is, or your role is unclear, or maybe you're like, my role is to be the alcoholic on the street. Hey, look, no judgment, but stay in your lane, right? Allow folks to be real. Allow folks to be new. If you've decided that was your role yesterday and today it's a new goddamn role, but then be brand new. But remember, you're new here, and vulnerability and humility will allow you to grow. And that is truly the goal. All right. That's enough of Aisha's advice and Aisha's talks. This has been Black Girl from Eugene, and you know I love you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will meet you again here next week. Bye-bye now. Thank you for listening to Black Girl from Eugene. Please subscribe, rate our show, and give a comment. Anything that you have to say and to contribute is welcomed and just helps the podcast grow. We really hope to see you each week. And until then, stay strong, stay connected, and we love you.